Well, welcome to the channel. My name is Peter. I've been in Japan for about 11 years. I taught English for about 10 or 11 years in this country, and I just switched to streaming full-time. Whoops. Why would I be an English teacher in Japan? One, I love this country. I'm a permanent resident here. I love the culture. I love the people. I love the foods. I love the cleanliness. I love it all. So English kept me in the country. It allowed me the opportunities in which to stay. It's not my favorite job, but I was pretty good at it. I rose all the way up to a very high position in the teaching industry, so I'm very good at it. I liked it. I'm thinking about moving to Japan. How hard is it to find some random job to survive? What about teaching English if you don't know Japanese? All right, well, first of all, my advice would be do not find a random job. A random job is probably just going to make your time in Japan as bad as mine was for my first X amount of months. I would say look for something that you're interested in. You don't need to speak Japanese to be an English teacher. However, you know, the slim pickings these days, I would check out different websites or mailing lists. I found my job on a thing called Ohio Sensei, which was like a mailing list. Find something, and sure, I get it. I totally get it. If your entry into Japan is a job you're not interested in, at least take the job seriously. I've seen so many bad teachers because they came here for the wrong reasons. They like manga, they like anime, they like Japanese culture and food, or some of them just want to find a partner, but they're not focused on the actual job. So their time here is really kind of, they'll have mixed feelings about it. They'll be like, oh yeah, Japan was great, except, or Japan was awful. How do people do this? And I think if you find a job that you feel like you can do, or at least make progress in, attack it. Go for broke. Have you ever worked at an international school in Japan? I have not. I've worked at Eikaiwas. I've worked at 5 elementary schools, 2 middle schools, and 2 high schools. There you go. But I've had a lot of experience teaching, and so I'm assuming the high schoolers are the easiest to handle. Yes and no. Sometimes I think it's better because they have a bit more communication. They're able to communicate their emotions more, either through writing or through English expression. In addition to that, you do have the issues that they're going through full puberty. You know, they're going through the entire gamut of different, you know, how they feel and what their feelings are. So you have to be able to harness that, especially depending on the course that you get. If you teach sports course like I did, sports course can be tough because they're not interested in any classes. They're interested in their sport, and women are interested in pushing away the boys. At least in my experience at my last school, it was just endlessly hard to get them focused. Each one's different, but, you know, it is what it is. You got to do your best. Some people like elementary school because it's more game-oriented. It's more, you know, the kids are cute or fun. And some people really like middle school because, just kidding. Nobody likes middle school. And then high school is usually the kind of preferred place, but it's also the hardest to get. So for my last 8 years, I did specifically high school, and I much preferred those 8 years to my first 2.5. So that's what I would get. I've heard Japanese high schoolers are just hard workers, which is very concerning. I'd feel like I want to tell them to, like, go out and enjoy the grass, the poor peeps. Well, let me put it this way. Japanese students are very diligent. They often will exceed your expectations. They're very well behaved. They're very nice. So here's the thing, though, is that your job as an English teacher, in my opinion, is how can you get them to express themselves more? That's the biggest hurdle when using a second language anyway, and especially for Japanese students. So that's your big challenge. And you know what? They're great in their clubs. They are outgoing. They just don't show it to our lame asses as the teachers. You know what I mean? I teach Taiwanese kids. They can be very shy. It's a skill to squeeze water from a stone, so to speak. That's the thing, right? And I feel like that's where I really made my bones. That's where I planted my flag, and I said, this is how I want to teach, is extracting some sort of emotion. I was not a jet. I came here as just an English teacher working for a company called the Heart Corporation. Sounds like a wrestling tag team unit, but it was absolutely awful. But yeah, I did not come from Jets. Kind of wish I did, because they have a lot of better opportunities than I think most teachers get. They have tons of vacation time. They get tons of opportunities that nobody else does. And you're like, damn, how can someone teach English without completely understanding the other language? See, that's the big trick, right? Here's the thing. You don't teach English. You're not an English teacher. Let go of your pride. You're an entertainer first and foremost. And usually you're working off of the premise that they already have some ability or a target language. Yes, eventually you can start you start learning how to explain concepts effectively and efficiently and things like that. That does happen for sure. But initially, you need to focus on just being a nice, good old clownerino cappuccino. How do you teach English without knowing Japanese as well? So the trick is this, right? 99% of the time you're an English teacher, not that much, 80%, you have two things that are going to happen. Number one, you're going to be working with another teacher who can say, I've already taught them this grammar point. Can you come up with some activities that you think would best supplement their lesson? So they already know the basics, so all you got to go in there and do is make it interactive, make it engaging, make it fun. Number two, you have a lesson plan book that's already been prepared for you, and you're working on some concepts rather than explaining in depth certain grammar points. There you have it. So sometimes though, you will get an opportunity to create your own lessons or to create your own materials. And by that point, if you're being asked to do that, you've already got a pretty good idea of how to break it down into bite-sized, easy to understand kind of vocabulary and words and fun stuff. A lot of teachers, when they first come here, don't realize they need to talk a lot slower. Not because of the comprehension level, but it is legit though. I taught English in Korea, and it was being a fun babysitter is more effective than being a grouchy teacher. Saran and Ryder, they got the right of it. How hard was it to overcome their shyness? I would say that that is the hardest part. You got to remember two things. One, you already have an advantage when you walk in the room because you are different than a Japanese teacher. The kids are almost certainly going to be more interested in hearing what you have to say than what they have to say. So use that to your advantage by creating lessons that start with something fun to make sure that they feel, you know, interactivity is okay. And the number one thing I started every single year with is I made it a point to tell them, listen, there's only like 3 rules in my English class. Number one is that if I ask you to do something, try to do it fully. Like, legitimately give it your best effort, okay? If I say today we're going to play a game where we're going to study the basics of theater, which is like the 5 W's and H's. So I want you guys to have a partner, and I want there to be no talking. And you have to make a scene. It can be any scene you want. I don't care. But I want other people to be able to look at your scene and answer, who are the people in the scene? Where are they? What are they doing? And then we'll see if, like, you can tell a clear story with just gestures, which is an important part of English, I feel like, is how we communicate physically. Number 2, mistakes are okay, which is the biggest and most important aspect of it. And you have to explain that so much. You have to really get it into their head that you say, listen, I get it. English is not an easy language. English is not even a fun language a lot of the time. But I promise you'll enjoy this class more if you do it my way instead of yours. And number 3, have fun. Aww. These kids, they're so funny if you give them the chance to be funny. I don't think you guys can understand just how ridiculously awful some of those teaching days could be, and they don't even make good stories. They're just like, oh my, like proctoring tests. In Japan, they're militant about how they proctor tests. So while you're there, you cannot check your phone, you cannot do anything, and if a student knocks over their pencil, they can't even pick it up. You have to walk to them pick up their pencil and put it back on their desk. And it's silent the entire time. And it's just, you're left alone with your thoughts, and there's no other place I'd rather be. That's terrifying. It is unbelievable. Did you use your acting when you were teaching? Yeah, all the time. I think teaching is basically acting anyway. My approach to it was the same as often as possible. Try to have fun with the kids. Try to make sure everybody is excited to learn English. Right? Teaching is pretending you know what you're talking about, which is some kind of acting. At least that's what my teachers were like. I feel like that's a lot of it. You know, a lot of people have the knowledge of how to teach or what they're trying to say, or, you know, they have this stuff, but being able to make it, and I get it. Some teachers are like, that's stupid. No, my job is to not entertain you, and you're not at school to be entertained. You're at school to learn, and I will dictate and you will take notes. Okay, but I do think that having that element of performance can be the big difference between a good teacher and a great one.